What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another review. Today we have the Suicide Squad review, the knockoff Guardians of the Galaxy review, whatever you want to call it. The sequel to the worst superhero film ever. I don't know if it's the worst superhero film ever, but from what I remember, it was pretty bad when I went to watch the first Suicide Squad. I'll be honest, I wouldn't have gone and seen this film if my friends didn't want to go see it. I didn't even pay much attention to it coming out. I was aware of it, but I wasn't really interested because the first one was pretty bad. I am more of a Marvel fan than a DC fan anyway. For me, the Marvel films kind of blow the DC films, or the majority of them, out the water, especially the whole Justice League thing. It's like they tried to copy Marvel in many ways. Like they tried to create their own Avengers with the Justice League, and it really didn't work out. And then this one seems like it's a knockoff Guardians of the Galaxy. A lot of parallels. They have like one lead guy, which is like Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy, Idris Elba. They have like a badass female character in terms of Harley Quinn, and then Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they have a washed WWE superstar, Batista, John Cena, and then you have a ex A-list celebrity sort of actor like Vin Diesel does Groot. Says like two words. In this one, Sylvester Stallone plays like the shark guy, and he says like two words. So there's a lot of parallels. I think they even have the same director, so I mean, he probably drew some inspiration from that, I guess. In terms of this movie, man, I didn't enjoy it all the way through. At points I was bored. Like I feel like it was too long. It was like just over 2 hours long, which is the typical length for films these days. But I didn't enjoy it the whole way through. It got a lot better towards the sort of middle end. Like I feel there was too much build up, too much weird additional things in there. There was a lot of forced jokes, especially on John Cena's part. But we'll talk about that in a minute with the characters. Straight away, the film starts off with a weird scene. It has Mel from Walking Dead, right? And he's just there being this hard ass criminal in jail. He kills a bird with a bouncy ball, and then 5 minutes later they turn him into a bitch. Dies because he runs away. Because like they storm this fucking beach with all these characters. The only two that survive are Harley Quinn and the lead sort of guy who leads the operations. And they introduced a lot of wacky characters in straight away, and they killed them off instantly. We don't know even what Mel's I keep calling him Mel from Walking Dead. He's Michael Rooker. I don't know what his character's powers were or anything. Didn't even tell us. They introduced a Javelin Man who ended up dying, and they trolled it because he gives Margot Robbie his javelin to have for Harley Quinn, and then there's a guy who detaches his arms as his power, and then there's a weasel who's just a weasel who can't swim, and they throw him in the fucking ocean, and then he's meant to be dead. So yeah, a lot of stupid characters, right? A lot of stupid characters, and they kind of set the tone for the film that's going to be a stupid, not taken seriously film, which I think for Suicide Squad is pretty standard. That's what you want for it. You don't want it to be a serious film because we saw what happens with that, and then you end up with a piece of shit film. In terms of the main characters, Idris Elba's Bloodsport, I think it was called. It was pretty cool. He's a knockoff Deadshot. Obviously, you can't call him Deadshot because you had Will Smith, so it would be a weird conflict of interest there. Harley Quinn was cool. It was just basically the continuation from the first one with that character. They made the lady who's like the orchestrator or the person who puts it together a lot more evil this time for some reason. But yeah, the shark, like I said, he was a knockoff Groot. He was a funny character. He was basically indestructible. John Cena's character was pretty annoying at times. I feel like they gave him too much of a big part. Like he was talking way too much. He was constantly trying to be the comic relief of the film. I didn't really enjoy it that much. All the characters, you had the rat lady who summoned rats. She was basically the Pied Piper. Then you had like Polka Dot Boy, who was like a walking disco ball, but hated his mum, and he saw everyone as his mum. And could shoot these weird disco lights out of himself, and it would vaporize shit. It was really strange. But they did kill a lot of characters off too. Like they didn't like try and maintain the main cast. They killed a shit ton of them off, except like the main few, like Harley Quinn and Bloodsport and the Rat Girl and the Shark. They basically killed everyone else off. In terms of the story of the film, there wasn't really much story. It was the typical superhero film. There's an island that's been taken over, and they hate the US. And then you discover they're running some experiments on this starfish creature who eats your consciousness and grows bigger. Your typical story. What wasn't typical is that Harley Quinn kills the president who took over like midway through the film, and then his general takes over, which I guess does happen a lot in these films too, so maybe I lied on that. And he wants to use the starfish to take over, and this weird doctor has like fucking light bulbs sticking out of his head has been experimenting on the starfish forever, and his starfish is mad. And then they let him out, and the starfish goes crazy and starts turning everyone into zombies because that's the trick with the starfish. You releases little starfishes, it gets on your face, and then it eats your consciousness and it turns you into a zombie. That was a pretty funny part. But then also in the middle of all that, John Cena turns evil and he trying to save starts trying to yoink this tape that has all the records so the US won't be implicated in, blah blah blah, because it turns out the US were actually doing experiments on the starfish instead of this actually island nation, blah blah blah. Your normal nonsense. But in the end, they end up defeating the starfish, kind of in the stupidest way possible. Margot Robbie uses the javelin from Javelin Man and just decides, instead of throwing a javelin like you would, you know, she decides to just run off a building and just go directly into the starfish's eyeball, which I guess was the only vulnerable part of it. And then the other lady gets all the rats in the city to just go and jump in this fucking starfish's eyeball and eat the fuck out of it, which I guess is what rats do. And they defeat the starfish, which was funny, I guess. But yeah, the whole film, all in all, was stupid. It was decent though. I wouldn't say it was like it was bad. It wasn't like I prefer this over the first one, just because the first one was kind of a train wreck. If I were to rate it, I would give it like 6.5 out of 10. Like the only film I've watched recently that I can compare is Space Jam, and I feel like I enjoyed Space Jam just as much. But the reason I did was because it had LeBron in it. Because Space Jam was pretty bad otherwise, but they're both kind of trolly films. Maybe if they switched John Cena for LeBron in this film, I would have liked him. Decent film. Would I recommend that you watch it yourself? I would just wait for it to come out on like Netflix or some shit, dude. Like, don't go waste money on this. Like, it's not really worth wasting money unless you're a massive DC fan or some shit. Then sure, but I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. Average movie, like it's just an average movie. I think a lot of people probably enjoy it more because the comparison is the first Suicide Squad. But average for me, it was just your typical movie. Not bad, not great. But yeah, that's all I got. See you guys next time.